Hey everyone, it's Aliah Henry, and you're listening to The Aliah Henry Show. Expect to hear insightful interviews and panel discussions covering community, entrepreneurship, health, and women's empowerment. Don't miss out. Keep listening. The Aliah Henry Show is up next. Welcome, I'm your host, Aliah Henry, and I want to talk about girl bosses and fearless women. Joining me today is that woman. She is an entrepreneur, speaker, cancer advocate, and media personality. She holds a degree in journalism from the University of Colorado at Boulder. She is a community volunteer and serves on multiple boards of nonprofit organizations. She is Dallas influencer Kimberly Alexander. Well, Kimberly, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for your time. And it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, it's been a while, and I know we connected. Gosh, I don't even know how long it's been.
It was 2 years ago.
It's been that long? Okay.
Yep.
Wow. This is long overdue.
Long overdue, yeah. And definitely, and it's great because, you know, when I'm out and we're meeting people, you know, I always seem to, you know, I think when I meet people that I truly like magnetic to, you know, I just love that. And so, of course, I've followed you and seen all the work that you're doing in our community. Mm-hmm. And I think it's amazing. And obviously now to understand your story, I really just thought it would be great to talk about that and talk about what you're doing. And when I was preparing for our discussion today, I thought about this quote from W.E.B. Du Bois. There is no force equal to a woman determined to rise. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think about when I think about you and your story. And so I'm just, I'm honored and grateful that you're here and that you're willing to talk about it and share all the great successes as well with our audience. So thanks.
Thank you. It's an honor. It really is.
So I'm going to jump right in. You're an entrepreneur and you are the owner of Kim Connects. Share with us a little about what Kim Connects is and what you're aspiring to do with your business.
So Kim Connects is a boutique consulting firm. I actually started it a few years ago kind of as an umbrella to house all of the things that I'm so passionate about. You know, my backstory is a little bit complicated. I don't want to like jump all over the place, but you know, I was married to an NFL player, and one of the complicated things about being married to an athlete is that a lot of times you put your career aspirations on hold. And so when my husband was playing, my responsibility was taking care of him and taking care of our sons. My background, my passion was broadcast journalism, but we moved all the time. Whenever he was playing during the season, we lived in one city, and then we would come back to Dallas, and no one was going to hire me knowing that I'm moving all the time. So I kind of didn't worry about it. And when he retired, you know, in my head, I'm like, okay, now it's my turn to kind of figure out what I want to do and get started. You know, I was still relatively young. I was in my 30s. Our kids were in school. And his health kind of took a turn. And when that happened, it ultimately ended up making me realize I needed to figure out something to do when the rest of our life kind of played out, I guess is the best way to put it. And so, you know, a lot of times during his career, like I'd actually started a couple of businesses. I started a t-shirt company.
Really?
I did, yeah. Way back in the day. You remember when everybody was wearing the BB Rhinestone t-shirts?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So my husband played for the Oakland Raiders, and their colors are black and silver. The most boring color combination on the planet. And I was one of those wives where I didn't like always dressing up to go to a game. You know, I kind of wanted to wear jeans and something cute, but all they ever had in gift shops back then or in the team shops were the big bulky jerseys. So I taught myself how to create rhinestone t-shirts, and I made some for myself, and it kind of took off. I was a little bit ahead of the game, because now, everybody's doing it,
everybody's got a blank shirt.
Blows me away, because I'm like, man, we were doing that back in like 2001, like 1999, 2000. So that was really kind of how I got started in entrepreneurship. And I took the lessons I learned from there to what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so exciting. It's interesting, and as you sit here and you talk about bling shirts and rhinestone shirts, I can probably say I have like almost 15 to 17 shirts.
Really?
That are all blinged.
Wow.
Whether it's from sorority, that we had some PTA shirts last year that were blinged out. So you're right, it's kind of interesting how that fashion, it's not like the bell bottoms, and then they went away for 20 years, and now all of a sudden they're back. And now everyone wants to say, oh yeah, look at my pants. And I'm thinking, well, we wore those in high school. Right. Now I'm dating my age. But it's just amazing how fashion trends really do kind of segue into different generations as well.
Yep.
So it's interesting. You talked about those lessons that you learned throughout some of this entrepreneurship journey. What would a couple of those lessons be to someone that is just on their beginning of their journey?
Ooh, I think my first lesson would be, or my first bit of advice would be to really, really, really think long term. Think about, what you want people to think about when they see your business. Be, strategic about what you name your business. Take incredible photos. Don't hesitate to invest in stepping your game up. Like back then, social media didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so now it is such a game changer, and it can really make or break a business. So it's one of the things that I really do try to stress to people. I was actually in a meeting a couple of days ago with a young woman who wanted me to talk to her about marketing her business. And the first thing I did was looked at her Instagram. I'm like, wait a minute, you're telling me what you do, but I'm looking at your photos and your bio, and I don't get that at all. And so my first bit of advice was, you need to change this up and be more clear about what it is you're wanting to do, the type of clientele you're trying to attract, and do that. Now, whether or not she takes that advice, that's a whole different ballgame, because a lot of times people aren't ready. And so that's just kind of been one of the things that I definitely try to stress to people, to make sure that whatever you're putting out there, be clear about it so that people will be able to find you and know what you do.
And that's, it's so interesting that social media has taken such a huge place in everybody's mindset. Obviously there's 3 billion people on all of the social media platforms at any given time. And that to me, and they're spending anywhere from 5 to 7 hours on any type of social platform. Yeah. And so it's just different. Because I just remember spending a lot of my time outside on a bike.
I know. Yeah, we definitely weren't on computers and phones the way people are now.
Yeah, definitely a different way of life. So, in addition to being an entrepreneur, and we talked a little bit about you're philanthropic and you're very involved in the nonprofit community. And you talked a lot about Aliah. And I know that, during that loss of Aliah, you really were able to share how his legacy, like where it's going today, has really propelled your philanthropic efforts. Talk a little bit about the advocacy work that you are doing with the National Leukemia Society.
So, like I was explaining before, I lost my husband to the blood cancer, multiple myeloma. He was very young. He was only 39 when he passed away. And I was 37, and I needed to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And, oddly enough, right before he passed away, I was in the middle of taking a social media class and a nonprofit management class, because he had started a nonprofit just before he passed away, and I promised him that I would keep it going. But after I lost him, and I was in the process of trying to run everything, I became overwhelmed. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did, because at the time we had two young sons, our kids were in middle school and high school, I wanted to make sure that I didn't fall apart for them.
Yeah.
You know, to me, maintaining my own sanity and taking care of myself meant they had somebody that they could look up to, because my biggest concern was that they would look to me and see me struggling and feel obligated to either, you know, worry about me. I just wanted my kids to continue to be able to be as normal as possible, you know, in spite of losing their father and me losing my husband. And so at that point, I decided, you know what, instead of stressing myself out, trying to run this nonprofit, let me take my talents, go over here to a well-oiled machine and get behind it. And so I ended up becoming involved with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. I sit on the executive board now, and I've been there probably about 4 or 5 years, and I absolutely love it. I mean, it gives me an opportunity to continue to educate people about multiple myeloma, to continue to raise money in order to help find a cure. You know, multiple myeloma is the second most common blood cancer. It's incurable. It affects African American men at a higher rate, and a lot of people don't know anything about it. And so there have been a lot of advancements made since I became aware of myeloma back in 2005, but I'm still so passionate, like until there's a cure, I'm going to keep, you know, plugging right away, just trying to help any and everybody I can, not even just in the myeloma space, but with cancer in general, because one of the things that I've learned is that it honestly tends to affect all of us the same way. You know, anytime anyone is facing a cancer diagnosis, what it does to a family is just incredible.
You know, it's interesting when you talk about the advocacy of just cancer and that piece. One of the things that I know really comes to mind is now you become a caregiver, and that is tough. People don't necessarily understand what that means to actually have to be the caregiver. And in your case with Elijah, he was very involved. So you got two parents, you know, going to practice or taking one to the doctor or doing all of those different things. But then once you become the caregiver, you're now like that single parent that's really having to do a lot of the legwork of the load. What would you share just as advice for someone who possibly is a caregiver or is a because I think sometimes you don't really think that it really does affect like the family until it happens. And it's really different.
Well, one of the things that I remember is, honestly, I didn't realize I was a caregiver until maybe about 3 or 4 years into it, because in my head it's like, well, I'm a wife and a mom. It's my responsibility to take care of my husband. It's my responsibility to take care of our children. So for me, it's just kind of like, okay, I just have added responsibility. It's, you know, everything hit our family so quickly. You know, Elijah had been playing in the NFL. He was diagnosed with myeloma 2 years after he retired. We did not see it coming at all. And so, like most caregivers, I hadn't been prepared. No one had ever really said anything to me. And once he was diagnosed, all of the attention went to him. And that was fine, because in my opinion, that is where it needed to go. My needs went on the back burner. But one of the biggest pieces of advice that I would give anyone who finds themselves in the caregiver role now is don't forget about you, you know, because if you aren't sound, if you aren't feeling good about yourself, if you're not, you know, getting a moment where you're not so stressed out, you're no good to anyone else. So don't ever feel guilty about, you know, taking a little bit of time to work out, take a little bit of time to go for a ride and listen to your favorite music, go to Starbucks, go get your nails done, walk around the mall, like just do something for yourself so that you don't just completely lose yourself in worrying about everyone else. And I think as women, you know, that's naturally what we do, and we really do have to be mindful about, you know, just not letting it overtake everything.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's challenging because we tend to think that if we don't do it, it won't get done.
And usually it won't.
It won't.
You know, and so it's kind of like if it doesn't get done,
get
it's going to come back on you in some form or fashion anyway. But you still have to find just a little piece of time for yourself.
The other thing I think that I've learned is that I'm okay with it being not done. But it took me a long time to get to that space. Like I've always been one that before I go to bed, the kitchen has to be clean. And I don't mean like clean, I mean everything's got to be put back, because I get anxiety if I get up in the morning and I got to come back into the kitchen and I can't even get started.
Right.
But you know, when things get busy, like right now, I'm like, okay, and I think I've seen it, like there'd be dishes in the sink and it might be there for 2 days, and I've really gotten okay with it. But I think I have, because it's just, you know, there's other things that I think I've learned to be worried about, and that just, those little things all of a sudden became, it's okay.
Yeah, well, it's incredible what a stressful situation will do to you, because I'm totally that way now. You know, one of the things that I pride myself on doing is recognizing my bandwidth. I know what I can handle. If it's too much over here, I'll walk away from it. I'm not going to allow people to stress me out with what's worrying them, because at the end of the day, you know, if I'm not feeling 100%, if I'm, you know, feeling overrun and just tired and worn out, then I'm no good to anyone. So I will turn it off. I will walk away. My favorite phrase, and I became so much more comfortable with saying it after 40, is no.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to go. I'm not going to feel obligated to do anything that I'm not really interested in. I don't feel like I owe anyone anything anymore. As long as my kids are good, I'm good. Outside of that, they'll live.
Yeah, that's good. That is really good. So, I mean, obviously, with your children, and they're grown men.
They're grown.
Isn't that cool?
They'll always be my babies, so I don't care.
So
they'll
cool
always
now
be.
that they're like in this.
They're adults.
Adulthood.
Yeah.
Talk about what do you see for them? Like, because again, these last 9 years have been different. Life has been different, but I am sure Elijah is looking down on y'all just smiling.
I hope.
This is good. I mean,
Yeah.
all the things that you've accomplished, and, you know, obviously the boys are in adulthood. What do you see for them, or what do you say to them?
Well, you know, honestly, when everything happened, when I had to explain to them that I was going to have to take their dad off of life support, and that whole process, that was by far the worst day in my life. And it's like the one day that I think, you know, if I think about it too long, I will always get very emotional about it. But one of the things that I wanted to stress to our sons was, you know, no matter what, you know, the expectations that Dad and I had of you will remain the same. You know, I never wanted them to use losing their dad, my husband, as an excuse for them not to do all of the things that we knew that they were capable of doing. And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure of was that, like I said earlier, that life was as normal as it could be. And so, you know, after my husband passed and we had his celebration of life, that weekend the boys had games, I had them at the games. Everything that we were doing before, we kept doing, and I felt like that was very important to establish some sense of normalcy. Even though it was a new normal, you know, it was still some normalcy. The one thing that changed was that I promised them that I would get them a dog. And so I got them a dog. I got them a Mastiff.
Oh, wow.
And
they're
so,
large, aren't they?
yeah, she was humongous, but
Okay.
she was like, you know, a 90-pound lap dog. She was incredible. But, you know, she was a great addition to our life, and the boys, you know, they grew up, they made it through high school, they graduated, and our oldest one went to college. He's a DJ now. He's DJ Easy Does It.
I think I saw him. Well, I saw a picture of him DJing at an event.
It's so funny because I had actually gotten DJ lessons for myself. You know, it's kind of, I'm real big on bucket lists now.
Okay.
Because I have a huge respect for the fact that none of us are promised tomorrow. So if there's anything that I want to do, I'm pretty much going to do it. And being a DJ was one of them. And I mentioned it to him, and I saw his eyes light up.
Oh, cool.
being the mom that I am, I could not take the lessons, so I gave them to him.
Okay.
He sold all his video game equipment, bought DJ equipment. That was probably 4 years ago.
Wow.
So he's been at it a while. And our youngest one played baseball.
Okay.
And I kept up with that. I was the worst baseball mom. I knew football. As long as I had him at the game and he was in his uniform, that was, all I was worried about. I'd have my earbuds in. I wouldn't necessarily interact with the other parents. It was hot, and he ended up being drafted by the Yankees out of high school. And so now he's playing in their minor league system. And so being able to watch both boys thrive in fields that they're happy with.
That's incredible.
I mean, what more can I ask for?
Yeah. That's priceless.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. You talked a little bit about self-care, and
I'm big on it.
Yes, and something that you said in a conversation that we had was like about your workout. Talk a little bit about your workout, but then also some things that you really are passionate about with your self-care, and why that's important as a woman, as a mom, just for you.
Well, for me, let me stop. I didn't always. I got D's in PE in high school. And when I got to college, I initially started at the University of Florida. I'm from Gainesville, Florida. And everybody at UF worked out. So I'm like, man, what is this all about? So I took a weightlifting class, and I really, really liked it. And then when I started dating my husband and I married him, he was an athlete, so I had to kind of work out too. So I kept working out. I pretty much tried to stay in shape as much as I possibly could. And I realized how important that was, especially when he was in treatment for his cancer. During his treatment, I maintained my workouts. I honestly looked at him because he kept working out during his treatment as well. And so I'm like, my goodness, here he is battling, this cancer that was wearing him down a lot of the times, and he was still lifting weights and still going to ride his bike. So it kind of put pressure on me to, I can't go and get lazy. And so after he passed away, though, of course, there were a lot of things that changed in my patterns, just in what I was doing, trying to adjust to being a widow and just trying to balance everything with the boys. And maybe about a year or two after he passed away, I saw a photo of myself and noticed that I'd gained weight. And I panicked a little bit, and I was approaching, I think it was my 40th birthday, and I went and got a trainer, and he wore me out. I was working out with him 3 days a week for like an hour, and I saw how much of a difference it made and how much better it made me feel. And so I've pretty much remained very adamant about making sure that a good workout is still a part of my day. And I literally will plan my day around my workouts. I typically have to get it done first thing in the morning, and kind of go from there. And I just started a new one probably about 3 weeks ago. I'm doing Orange Theory, so it's really challenging and it's really hard, but it's making a difference, and I like it.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you like to travel?
I love to travel.
Okay.
Listen, I love Dallas, but the best part about Dallas is our airport, because you can get on a plane and leave very easily. And so I love traveling.
Is there some place that you have not been that's on your bucket list that you definitely want to make sure that you do?
Gosh, not really, for the simple fact that I'm one of those people that regardless of where I go, I will always find something interesting to do. Okay. I don't care how big or small the city is. I will Google the best restaurant. I will Google, a museum. There's always something worthwhile to go and see. I love the Caribbean, so anything with a beach is perfect for me. Yeah.
Awesome. So talk a little bit about what's next for you. Obviously, you are really heavily into the philanthropic space. and as a cancer advocate. What's next?
Honestly, what's really weighing on me now,
Okay.
is still something related to cancer, but it's more in the health disparity space.
Okay.
I'm becoming very aware of how a lot of people aren't being given the opportunity to learn about the treatment that's available to them, or they're not aware of the resources that are available to them. And I really do want to be someone who moves the needle in making a difference in that space, because I keep seeing people kind of do things the same way. Everybody wants to do a community event where you set up a booth and you pass out brochures. But that's really not enough. And we need to start having some really tough, open, straight up conversations about, what we need to be doing in terms of healthcare in order to make a difference.
You talked a little bit earlier about African Americans being African American men being the fastest in
With myeloma.
With myeloma.
Most diagnosed.
So why isn't that? I mean, it's like I went to look it up, and after you and I talked, and it was just amazing that I had never really. I mean, obviously, I lost my dad from leukemia, acute leukemia, but he had only probably had for about 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh wow! Okay.
Like we were right before radiation stage,
Okay.
so it took a turn for the worst, and got very ill. And so even at that point, we were like, "What?
Right.
He has what?"
Yeah.
I mean, it just like for you, it was just it came out of nowhere.
Right.
And so again, when obviously I learned of Elijah's diagnosis, it's unheard of. But then we're being told that it's the number one cancer, or it's not number one, but it is a high rate
It's
of
the second,
cancer for Black men.
It's the number one blood cancer that affects African American men, but it's the second most common blood cancer. And I think a lot of that comes from marketing. To be very honest with you, a lot of times so many people hear about certain types of cancer as opposed to others, and that's just all about who is putting their cause out there the most. And so because I know that, it's why I talk about myeloma all the time. It's in all of my bios on social media. I have a hashtag that I use that says I'm here because of myeloma, so that whenever I'm doing anything within the cancer advocacy space, I tag it with that. People can click on it and see everything that I've done in terms of cancer advocacy, because to me it's so important to keep the name out there so that people are aware of it. And I love it when people find me on social media and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I found you. I've heard about you." I love to be able to help them and point them in the right direction, even if it's not from within our own organization with LLS. I'm aware of and have worked with the International Myeloma Foundation. We've supported the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. I've done a lot. And to me, it's like, if I want to help people, I want to make a difference, I have to be able to send people wherever. I can't just kind of sit on certain information, because at the end of the day, I'm aware of the fact that something that I know may help save someone else's life.
Yeah, it's so, I'm inspired by your work, number
Thank you.
one. And I just think it is so important. I feel like when we have these platforms, again, we just have to continue to have the conversations. And so, obviously being an entrepreneur, having that internet radio show for 3 years was great. But now seeing this podcast platform, I really want to be able to just keep sharing the information. Because at the end of the day, that's how we're going to overturn some of the things that are happening by education. And if this is a great platform that we can use, obviously social media is so important at this point, but we just have to continue to keep the fight going.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would leave with our audience about leading your best life?
Ooh, leading your best life. I think most importantly, find something you're passionate about. I think that having something that I'm so passionate about has given me a whole different sense of purpose. And I know, we talk about that all the time. It's almost like the phrases are a cliche at this point, but there really is something to be said about, just having something that just kind of makes your blood boil. Like, either it makes you want to, go out and help it or go out and celebrate it. It's interesting because last night I was preparing for a conference that I'll be going to in a few weeks that revolves around cancer disparities. And then unfortunately, I got some news today that a young man that I'd done some work with, he was honored by our organization. Young man, he lost his battle with leukemia. And it started my day off horribly, to be very honest with you, but it also inspired me and let me know this is why the work you're doing is so incredibly important. At the end of the day, I'm not going to forget about the things that make me happy all the time. And, I'll keep those things always around because I'll kind of need them to lift my spirits. But at this point, I am just so fired up to keep doing more in the cancer advocacy space, to continue using my platform, like you were saying before with your podcast. I co-host a sports talk radio show. We didn't even really get to talk about that, but let me tell you, anytime I have the opportunity to talk about myeloma or blood cancer or cancer advocacy, somehow when I'm on the radio talking about football, basketball, and baseball and all that kind of stuff, to me, it's like, job well done, Kim. Like, just anything you can do to just kind of tie in something important with, just some fun stuff every now and then.
Tell us how we can listen to the Sports Talk Show.
Oh, well, we're on Sunday mornings on 105.3 The Fan. It's a sports talk radio show called The Game. The Game stands for the Golf and More Experience. I'm the and more experience part because I can't play golf. And so luckily I have an amazing co-host by the name of Tim Matthews who handles all the golf talk, and then I can kind of chime in about all the other stuff. I offer a different perspective when it comes to sports. Having been, married to an athlete, now the mom of an athlete, my perspective is completely different.
Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait to tune into
Thank
that
you.
as well.
Awesome.
Very good. Well, Kimberly, it has just been a pleasure and my honor to have you on the show. I think it's exciting. I look forward to us to have some continued conversations.
Absolutely.
Definitely want to look at continuing the efforts and just really talking about issues that matter. It's important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Aliah Henry Show. Remember, be bold enough to use your voice, brave enough to listen to your heart, and strong enough to live the life you've always imagined. See you next time.